April 1st. You know, it's a date for pranks, for jokes, a little bit of fun. But in 2024, for a young woman in Milwaukee, it was. It was just a Monday, the start of something new, she hoped. She puts on a beige outfit, grabs her purse, and heads out to this seafood place, the Twisted Fisherman. It sounds like the start of a rom-com. Or, you know, just a totally normal night, a first date.
It really does. It's so mundane in the most human, hopeful way, the kind of night thousands of people have.
But we aren't doing a deep dive on this because it went well. We're looking at it because by the time the sun came up on April 2nd, that young woman, Sade Robinson, was gone. And then you fast forward to August 2025, and a judge is looking down at her date, a man named Maxwell Anderson, and she's telling him his actions are something out of a horror novel.
And that phrase horror novel, it wasn't just, hyperbole. That was a judicial finding. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the case of State of Wisconsin versus Maxwell Anderson.
And we have a lot to get through. We've got the court transcripts from the sentencing, investigative timelines from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and FOX6, the criminal complaint itself. Our mission today is to figure out how a first date just completely unraveled into a homicide investigation and to analyze those digital breadcrumbs, the Life 360 data that basically trapped the killer.
And really sit with the aftermath of a verdict that came, lightning fast.
And when you say lightning fast, you mean it.
Oh, I do. This is a case where the jury was out for less time than it takes to watch an episode of some TV drama.
Yeah.
But getting to that point, that took a massive amount of forensic work.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we even get to the courtroom, the grisly details, let's just establish who these two people were. Because on paper, Sade Robinson and Maxwell Anderson were living in like two totally different worlds.
They really were.
Yeah.
Let's start with Sade. She was 19. And everything you read about her, the word that keeps coming up is ambitious. She was a student at Milwaukee Area Technical College.
Studying criminal justice.
Yeah, which is just a tragic irony given everything.
And she becomes a victim of the very system she wanted to be a part of.
It is. And she wasn't just a student, she was grinding. She had two jobs, one at Pizza Shuttle, another at the Wisconsin Country Club. Her sister, Adriana, described her as a protector, a role model. She was just starting to build her own independent life. In fact, the college was so moved, they actually awarded her degree posthumously.
That's a really touching detail. And what's the pink thing? I kept seeing references to that in the source material.
Right. Pink was her favorite color, her signature color. It became this symbol for the whole community movement after she was gone. It really represented her vibrancy. Now, pivot to Maxwell Anderson. He's 33 at the time, 34 at sentencing, former bartender, sometime in the Navy.
Ex-Navy. That sounds disciplined, but his record, it doesn't really suggest that.
Not at all. The service record is brief, just 2011 to 2012. But his history in Wisconsin, it's just messy. Convictions for domestic abuse, disorderly conduct. But the most telling details, I think, they didn't come from his rap sheet. They came from people who had to deal with him every day.
You mean the insufferable landlord comment?
Exactly that. A former tenant testified that living in his duplex was like a nightmare. Said Anderson would do construction projects in the middle of the night, making noise at all hours, just zero regard for anyone else.
So it's less like he's this cinematic evil genius and more just chaotic, almost antisocial, like he just doesn't get the social contract?
Chaotic is the perfect word. The judge, Laura Crivello, she later said he had a different view of reality than the rest of us. And that disconnect is, I think, key to what happened on April 1st.
Okay, so let's reconstruct that night, April 1st, 2024. They meet at the Twisted Fisherman around 5:20 p.m. Then they go to a bar, Duke's on Water. And we have video of this.
We do. And here's the thing about that video. It looks totally innocuous. Yeah. They're playing beer pong, chatting. At one point, he puts his arm around her. If you were there, you'd just think, okay, that's a successful first date.
Which makes it so much creepier, because we know what's coming.
Much creepier. Around 9 p.m., they leave together. And this is where the physical world starts to fade and the digital world becomes the primary witness. They go back to his house.
And this is where that app comes in, Life 360. For anyone who doesn't know, that's like a family safety app. It tracks your location.
It's high-precision GPS. Sade shared her location with her family. So the data shows her phone going to Anderson's house. But then, later that night, the phone moves again. It goes to a place called Warnemont Park.
But Sade wasn't the one moving it.
The prosecution's theory was that, no, she was already deceased by then. And they had a piece of evidence from inside the house that was, well, it was the turning point of the trial.
Photo.
The photo. Investigators found a picture on Anderson's phone, taken that night. It showed Sade Robinson, face down on his couch. The prosecution said she appeared incapacitated, and he was groping her.
See, that just destroys any kind of accident theory, right? Because usually the defense would argue, oh, they fought, or it was self-defense.
Exactly. That photo suggests it's predatory. It suggests she was vulnerable, and he took advantage of that. It just changes the whole narrative from a date gone wrong to a calculated assault.
So April 2nd, Sade doesn't show up for work at Pizza Shuttle. And based on what we know about her, 2 jobs, responsible, that sets off alarms immediately.
Immediately. Her friends, her family, they knew something was wrong. And while they're starting to panic, the physical evidence starts to appear around the city. The next morning, April 3rd, her car is found.
Torched.
Completely burned out.
Okay.
Now, arson is usually about destroying DNA evidence. But in this case, the car itself told a story.
This is the seat test, right? I found this bit of detective work fascinating. It's so old school.
It is. So the car's a wreck. But a detective looks at the driver's seat. Sade Robinson was about 5 feet tall. Maxwell Anderson is way taller. And the driver's seat was pushed all the way back.
So her feet wouldn't even reach the pedals.
Exactly. She physically could not have driven it like that. It's a simple mechanical fact. That seat was set for someone of Anderson's height.
Yeah.
And then you layer on the surveillance video. Cameras caught a man who matched his description, walking away from the burning car and, get this, taking a public bus back to his own neighborhood.
He took the bus after torching a car involved in a murder.
He took the bus. It just creates this digital and video trail that leads right back to his own front door. It speaks to either, I don't know, arrogance or just complete lack of planning.
But we have to get to the grim reality of the discovery. Finding the car is one thing. Finding Sade was horrifying.
This is the part that earned that horror novel description from the judge.
Yeah.
They didn't find a body, not in the traditional sense. At Warnemont Park, near a playground, a person walking by found a severed leg.
Near a playground, that detail just makes it so much worse.
It does. And over the next few weeks, the lake started giving up more. A torso and an arm washed up in South Milwaukee. Another arm washed up all the way in Waukegan, Illinois.
That's miles away.
The currents took her. But, and this is so crucial for the case, they never found her head.
Okay, I want to pause there. From a legal perspective, how hard is it to prove homicide without the head? I mean, usually that's where you find the cause of death.
It's incredibly difficult. You can't prove blunt force trauma. You can't prove a gunshot.
Okay.
The medical examiner had to rely on the dismemberment itself. The argument becomes, you don't dismember a person who died from natural causes.
Yeah.
The act itself is proof of intent to hide a homicide.
It's circumstantial, but it's powerful. And when they searched his house...
A scene that looked like a very clumsy cleanup. There was blood on the walls. Now, to be fair, there was some confusion because Anderson had a dog. Yeah. So the defense tried to say, well, maybe it's dog blood. But there was also bleach. Lots of it.
And the knives. The report says 51 knives.
51 in his kitchen.
Who needs 51 knives?
Yeah.
Is that a collection?
Not really. It just speaks to that chaotic environment we talked about. It's almost hoarding behavior, but with weapons. And court filings also mentioned a confidential informant who claimed Anderson had discussed planning a killing weeks before.
So it wasn't spontaneous.
That's the implication. That this was a fantasy he was looking to act out.
So we go to trial, June 2025. The charges are first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, arson, hiding a corpse. The defense has a really tough job. What was their argument?
Their play was basically just reasonable doubt. They argued, look, no murder weapon was found, no neighbors heard a scream, no official cause of death because of the missing remains. They were trying to say, you can't prove he killed her. Maybe she died of something else.
That feels like a real Hail Mary.
It was. And the jury was not buying it.
Let's talk about that verdict. June 6, 2025. How long were they out?
Depends on the report, but somewhere between 36 and 45 minutes.
That's nothing. That's barely enough time to pick a foreman and sit down.
It sends a huge message. It means there was no argument. They walked into that room, looked at each other, and knew. It just shows that when you have a mountain of circumstantial evidence, the GPS, the video, the DNA, the seat, the bus ride, it can be even more powerful than one single smoking gun.
So guilty on all counts. But the real emotional core of this story, I think, comes at the sentencing hearing on August 1st. You read the transcripts. What was the feel in that room?
It was heavy. You had nearly 50 of Robinson's supporters there, most of them wearing pink, and Judge Laura Crivello. You could tell this case just rattled her.
She's the one who called him irredeemable.
She did. Irredeemable, unconscionable. And interestingly, she actually dismissed one of the charges, hiding a corpse.
Wait, why? He obviously hid the corpse.
It's a legal technicality in Wisconsin. You can't be convicted of both mutilating a corpse and hiding it because the mutilation is often part of the hiding. It's kind of a double jeopardy thing. So she dropped it, but it didn't change the sentence.
Before the sentence, the family spoke. And I've read a lot of victim impact statements, but they were just raw.
They were visceral.
Yeah.
Sade's mother, Sheena Scarborough, she looked right at him, called him a coward and a devil. She said, and I'm quoting, "I'm asking this demon be respectfully returned back to hell."
Respectfully returned back to hell. Wow. That phrasing it's both elegant and absolutely devastating.
It is. It shows the level of justified hate in that room. And her father, Carlos Robinson, he talked about having night terrors. He said something that really stuck with me. No man should be able to live after what he did. He was grappling with the fact that prison, even for life, just didn't feel like enough.
And her sister, Adriana, she was only 17.
Right, and for her, it was about trust. She said Anderson stole her ability to trust anyone. She's a teenager, and now she's terrified to meet new people because he proved that monsters are real. That's a trauma that changes a whole family's future.
And then Maxwell Anderson gets to speak. Does he apologize? Anything?
Nope. He stands up and says, "I did not commit these crimes," maintains his innocence, says he plans to appeal.
After all of it, the DNA, the video, the bus ride.
After everything. And the judge called him on it. She pointed out the huge gap between the mountain of evidence and his total lack of accountability. She basically said, "You are lying, and I'm not going to let you lie to us."
So the hammer comes down. What's the final sentence?
Mandatory life for the homicide. But here's the key part. In Wisconsin, a judge decides if a life sentence comes with the possibility of parole. The defense asked for eligibility after 25 years. Give him a glimmer of hope.
And the judge?
She said no, absolutely not. He will die in prison. She also added 7.5 years for the mutilation and 1.5 for the arson to run consecutively, just to make the record show every single thing he did.
So Anderson is gone, but let's look at the aftermath, because Sade Robinson isn't just a case file anymore.
No, and that's all credit to her family. They formed the Sade's Voice Foundation. And they are pushing for real legal change, specifically around how police handle missing person cases.
Because there was some criticism about how fast the search started, right?
Yes. There was a feeling that when a young black woman goes missing, the urgency isn't always there. The criteria for a critical missing alert is really strict. The family wants to change that, so the search starts immediately, not 24 hours later.
And there's a lawsuit, too.
A wrongful death suit. It targets Anderson, of course, but also the bars. The allegation is they overserve them. If they were visibly intoxicated, the family argues the bars bear some liability for what happened next.
It's about accountability all the way down the line.
Exactly. And the community. They reclaimed the narrative, too. They held a memorial on Anderson's own front lawn.
That's incredibly bold.
It's powerful. They covered his lawn in pink balloons, teddy bears. They basically said, this isn't a monster's house anymore. This is a memorial for Sade. There's also a mural at the pizza shuttle where she worked. They're making sure her face is what you remember, not his.
It's a tragedy, but that response is inspiring. It's a community just refusing to be defined by this violence.
It is. But there's one lingering shadow here.
What's that?
It goes back to the judge's comment about Anderson's different view of reality and the fact that he denies it all.
Right, the closure.
Could you ever really get closure when the person who did this to your daughter just refuses to admit it? And even more hauntingly, when parts of her are still missing.
That's the thought that sticks with me. Her father said it. They don't have all of her. And the only person who knows where the rest of her is sitting in a cell, claiming he knows nothing.
That is a specific kind of cruelty that the legal system just can't fix. The verdict is in, the sentence is final, but the secret, the final truth, is locked in his head. And the family just has to live with that gap.
And that's where we have to leave it. A swished verdict, a strong sentence, but a grief that really has no end date. It's a reminder to look out for each other and to appreciate the normalcy of a boring Monday night. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Stay safe out there.